Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Hope everyone out there had a great holiday weekend. We are back and ready to go. A packed show today. Titans fall to 1-11 with one of the worst performances you'll see from an NFL team yesterday. And of course, Vanderbilt goes into Neyland Stadium and comes out 45-24 winners. Commodores 10-2 await their college football playoff fate coming up. Rankings tomorrow. Mondays were made for Macero. Big screens, bold flavors, and all the football action. From queso to kickoffs, this is how Macero does game night. Macero Football Mondays in 12 South. Don't miss a snap. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby with you on this Monday morning. Your Reaction Monday. We'll take all your thoughts on our phone and text lines. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Going to talk Cam Ward in this segment, but first let's go back to our phone lines. Edward is on the line. Edward, thanks for waiting. What you got for us today?
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
Tennessee fan. It's just unbelievable. Josh Heupel is a great coach. Not just a good coach, but he's a great coach. They can't wait to get rid of their coaches. This carousel of coaching changes in the NCAA is getting out of hand. I tell you what, let's do this. Let's move Josh Heupel to Middle Tennessee State University, which is the largest university in the state. We're 3-8 at Middle Tennessee State University. The president's been there for decades. The AD's been there for decades. I'm getting tired of it. I go out, I pay my money, I make my contributions, and this is what we get. The basketball teams in TSU. They're playing UAB tonight. They're picked to win the conference. We're 4-3. The women, who I've always thought were one of the better women's basketball games, I believe they have a losing record right now. Yes, Coach Enzel is one of the greatest. He's getting ready to hit 500. But I'm tired of it. I told my wife, I am probably not going to go out to Middle Tennessee State University football games next year unless we see some changes. Because I'm very aggravated with everything. Anyway, thanks for letting me be my counselors this morning. I appreciate it. I feel a little bit better. All right, thanks. If you comment on these things, guys.
Thanks for the call, Edward. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been a rough season football-wise down there in Murfreesboro, and I saw a few players from that MTSU team entering the transfer portal. It hasn't been good, but things can turn around quickly in college football, and we've seen that in the past. The basketball teams with Rick Insell, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. He's got a very young team down there in Murfreesboro. I think they're going to figure it out. But I understand your complaints there, Edward. And yeah, for Vols fans who want Josh Heupel gone, the grass isn't always greener. We talked about this with Penn State. We've talked about it with the Titans, right? Like the grass isn't always greener. And the conversation all offseason was, are Vols fans going to give Josh Heupel a pass on this year? If they go 8-4 and they miss the playoffs, do they give him a pass? And I think a lot of Vols fans have said, hey, they did the most that they could considering, you lost your quarterback midway through the spring. Joey Aguilar ended up being a great fit for this system, but they couldn't beat the good teams on their schedule, right? They lost to an 11-win Georgia team, a 10-win Oklahoma team, a 10-win Vanderbilt team, and a 10-win Alabama team, right? They played 4 good teams. They lost all those games. Josh Heupel, I don't think, is the problem. And there's a reason why his name is at least being floated for other jobs, right? Like Penn State still hasn't hired a head coach. There's supposedly a mystery candidate out there, and some people are connecting Josh Heupel. Some believe it's Kalani Sitake over at BYU. Like there's a lot of names being thrown out. I understand Vols fans' frustrations, right? I mean, you go to the playoffs last year, you take a step back this year, you lose to Vanderbilt at home, which isn't something they ever want to see. But I wouldn't blame Josh Heupel. You want to fire Tim Banks? Great. I saw a lot of Vols fans calling for that on Saturday, and maybe that's something they do. But Josh Heupel deserves a little bit longer leash than what some people are giving them. 615-737-1025. Back to the phone lines. Adam in Portland is called in. Adam, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
I wish they would fire Heupel and the Titans could hire him. It would be so sweet. Dude, look, hey, I've got 4 sisters and a brother, and they're all over between 30 and 50, and we all live different lives. We all got to go to the Titans game together on Sunday, and it was cold. The offense was the ones to come out of the tunnel and get cheered for. And let me tell you, every lineman that came out, it was crickets in that stadium except for Skoronski. We cheered for Skoronski. So, and it proved it yesterday, man. Like it's incredible how uncoordinated that line is. And I'm sitting here and Cam's getting worse, man. Like, I know everybody's going to beat it to death, but like, you've got to get a good quarterback coach. You've got to hire the best coach and quarterback coach tandem possible for him, because right now he's getting nothing and he's regressing like crazy. That last play, the last play before we all left, which was like 6 minutes left, where he throws it to Spears or whoever, I think it was Spears, on like a 4th and 1,000,000 and gets him killed.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
Dude, he's really not seeing it at all well right now. So that's what I walk away with, is going, our quarterback, man, this season could not come to an end quick enough, and we've got to get a smart quarterback coach for him.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Adam, and that's where I was planning on going with this segment. Cam Ward was bad yesterday. Maybe his worst game of his rookie season. The accuracy was bad. I mean, the third down throw to Alec Iamaner, who was wide open down the sideline, and he just airmailed him. And the play that Adam was just referencing, it's 4th and 18 late in that game. And Cam Ward, just for the guy who calls himself a gunslinger, and early on in the season, you are having to stop him from throwing the ball downfield too much and not taking his checkdowns. It feels like the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction, where he is scared to throw the ball downfield. It was 4th and 18 yesterday. You're down by 22 points. Let something rip and see what happens, right? Like, if you throw a pick, you throw a pick. It's 4th down. A pick would be better than what he did. And instead, he just flips it to Tajay Spears all alone on the sideline with nowhere to go. And it's a turnover on downs. He didn't throw the ball beyond 20 yards downfield once yesterday.
Yeah, and I think that what makes a lot of it so puzzling is that when you looked at the scouting reports back in January, February, March, the number one thing that you saw Cam Ward often praised for is that he's a gunslinger.
Right.
He's not afraid to take those risks downfield to try to go for that big shot play, sometimes to his detriment, often not. And there were a lot of scouts and coaches that are like, they're going to have to almost coach some of that aggression out of him a little bit because it can be dangerous. Yesterday, he looked really timid throughout that game, and that just seems really uncharacteristic. And obviously, you don't want to read too much into things, but I mean, you saw after the game yesterday, he said that the way the season has gone has really tested him mentally. And you maybe kind of wonder if some of the struggles this season, if it's starting to kind of creep into some of that timidness, some of that shying away from trying to throw it deep, because that 4th down to Tajay Spears, especially, man, I mean, that's one of the few hospital balls that I've not seen go more than 3 yards down the field.
Yeah. Adam said he left after that game. I turned the TV off after that play because I just didn't understand the thought process there of that is one of my biggest pet peeves with quarterbacks. And you see it all the time with these players of 4th down. An interception is not the worst thing that can happen, right? Like, you saw it last year with Nico against Arkansas, where it's 4th down, and instead of throwing it and giving a receiver a chance, he just runs out of bounds for 3 yards. I saw it with Lenora Sellers in the game against Texas A&M earlier this year. He did the same thing. It's 4th down. It's late in the game. You need a play. You just ran out of bounds on 4th and 17 or whatever. Throw it downfield. Who cares what happens at that point? And I wonder if they've coached him a little bit too far out of those tendencies of being a gunslinger. Yes, you have to pick and choose the times that you want to take your shots down the field, but 4th and 18 is the time to do that. And again, he didn't throw the ball beyond 20 yards down the field yesterday. It's concerning that we are not seeing a little bit more consistency from Cam Ward, because I thought he was great in that Seahawks game. That was his best game of the season, and he took a huge step back. With this coaching staff, I don't know if we're going to see another big step forward this year.
Yeah, and to me, I think that's what would be the most concerning as a Titans fan, is that if you are a Tennessee fan, you know that this team, it is what it is, right?
Yep.
The record is what it is. You didn't have high expectations for this team even coming into the season. Really, I think the biggest success that you want to have was Cam Ward, was this rookie class. What could Cam Ward show? Could he grow? Could he develop? Could he show that he can be the guy in the future? And I think you've seen flashes of that, but when you're seeing your quarterback go from probably his best performance in the NFL to, I think you could make the argument, his worst, that is where a lot of the concerns do start to come valid. Now, I'm not saying that you should give up on Cam Ward and that he's a bust or anything like that. I think it's way too early. There are a lot of up and downs when it comes to rookies in the NFL, I think that Jacksonville team is also really good, man. That is a really good Jaguars team that's much improved over Liam Cohen. But just some of the things that we have seen from Cam Ward tendency-wise, that I think is what can be a little bit concerning. And I don't think this coaching staff and the situation, what is around him in terms of the offensive line, in terms of the weapons, it's not doing him any favors on top of it.
Right. And you make a good point of Titans fans. The excitement around this team is not going to be wins and losses. It's going to be the young players. And yesterday was a bad day for the young players. I mean, you look at the players that you think the Titans can build around moving forward. Cam Ward, maybe his worst game as a rookie. Chimdike, not saying it was a bad game, but he did fumble. And that fumble was massive in the flow of the game where the Titans, they were down 7-3, but they had some momentum on that first drive. And then by the time you get the ball back, you're down 15-3. And it feels like you're playing a completely different game than you were before. Not saying Chimdike had a bad game, but that's a bad mistake. Alec Iamaner, we're going to get more into this later, but he has hit a wall over the last 2 months. It has been bad. And then Kevin Winston even, who I heard yesterday that he said he was playing a completely different position than he's used to playing. So, I will give some grace, but that was his worst game as a rookie so far. So pretty much nothing went right for the Titans yesterday. And I'm sure Trey has some thoughts on Cam Ward. Trey, thanks for calling. Hope you had a good holiday. What's up?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Doing great. How about you?
Good. Hey, I listened to your broadcast, Vanderbilt women's basketball team. Hey, I didn't know I heard you did that because you talked about it all the time, but I just wanted to say you did a good job.
Thank you, Trey. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Hey, but all I want to say is that I think that me personally, I was optimistic last week on Cam Ward, and I feel like that I was duped because of the simple fact that he reverted back to doing everything that he did before. And I'm going to believe my eyes. It's bad. And I believe this is the worst it's been since the Titans been in town. I really believe that. I really honestly believe that. It's been 11 games. 3 points. You're talking about 3 points, and they're out there fighting when you got grown men out there fighting that makes millions and millions and millions of dollars. You're at your lowest point. And I just think the team just need to – I don't know what they're going to do, really. And I know y'all sit there talking about how bad they are, but, it's what we see. What we see and what we hear, because y'all know I like to listen. But, hey, y'all have a good day, but I don't think it could get any worse than what it is right now. And what do you think? And you have a good day. Thank you, buddy, on doing a good job on Saturday.
Thanks, Trey. Appreciate you calling in. Thanks for listening in. I guess Trey listens to Titans games, and he listens to Vanderbilt women's basketball. 8-0, by the way. Trey, he makes a good point. This might be the worst it's been since the Titans have been in Nashville. In the last 3 calendar years, the Titans have won 10 football games. 10. Mike Vrabel has won 10 games in the last 3 months with the Patriots, by the way. Not saying that means anything, but just putting it out there. The Titans have won 10 games in the last 3 calendar years. That is horrible. Horrible. And it can get worse apparently, because we've been saying for the last 2 years of, oh, well, I guess it can't get worse. It clearly can. And the Titans are well on their way to becoming the 7th franchise ever to have back-to-back number 1 overall picks. 5 games to go. We've just got to get through 5 more weeks. And then the offseason mercifully hits, where hopefully you can see some strides in the right direction, whether that's the coaching search, bringing players in. But 5 more weeks. That's all we got to do. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones and much more. We got to continue talking about Mike McCoy because it's been horrible, and the Titans desperately need someone who can right the ship coming in here once the season ends. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby with you here on this Monday morning. Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Tonight on Totally Hits 93.3, catch MTSU men's basketball as the Blue Raiders take on UAB at 6:30 p.m. Coverage is also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 102.5. The Game, talking Titans to start the show, as it was another rough one yesterday. 1-11 now for the Tennessee Titans, still in sole control of the number one overall pick. Let's go back to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jason from Hendersonville has been waiting patiently. Jason, thanks for calling. What you got for us?
Hey, guys, y'all can expound on the 2 points I'm going to make. I called in before the draft, and I was screaming, please trade down with the Giants. Please trade down with the Giants. I wasn't a big believer in Cam when he came in, but I'm going to give the organization and the scouts benefit of the doubt, and that's saying a lot. They overlooked his size and his hand size and all the measurables because I believe they thought they were getting a dual threat quarterback. I'm telling you right now, this guy is so slow. He looks slower than Ben Roethlisberger in his latter years and Peyton Manning in his latter years. With the big difference is he don't have the knowledge and the ability to surgically tear defenses apart with his eyes and his arm. So I'm not a big believer in him, hadn't been since the draft. And this is the perfect time. My second point is we know we're going to be stuck with him next year. They got to give him ample time before somebody pulls the trigger on what I think is the inevitable. But this is the perfect time for you to go out and get them unsexy picks at draft and start strengthening that offensive line. Because if you continue to allow this offensive line to destroy guys in the back, the quarterbacks in the backfield, it doesn't really matter who you pull in here. Jacksonville was coming through that line like they weren't even. At one point, I watched one of the Jacksonville defenders come through untouched, and he takes Cam Ward down, and he literally looks at the camera, or the camera panned on him. He just turned his palms up to the sky and shrugged his shoulders like, really? These guys, they can't stop us. And it was an eye-opening moment for me whenever you got a NFL player out there looking over at his coaching staff going, this is all day, guys. They can't stop us. So, it's the inevitable is coming, but we have to strengthen that offensive line. And it's draft coming up. If they don't get the offensive line right, it's going to be rinse and repeat all over again. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Jason. I think that's a very reasonable take from Jason as someone who didn't want Cam Ward, because we get plenty of unreasonable people who didn't want Cam Ward. Jason makes the point that he's going to get another year, doesn't believe in him, but you do have to build around him, right? And right now, this roster is about as bad as it gets around Cam Ward. You don't have any weapons for him with Calvin Ridley out for the year. Yeah, sure. You really do like Chim DK. I think there's hope Alec Iamaner ends up being a piece, even though he hasn't played well lately. But you're still running him out there with fourth-round rookies, undrafted guys, and veteran minimum free agents, right? Like it's not like he's getting much help on the outside. And then the offensive line has been bad. Josh Hines-Allen had a field day yesterday. I mean, he was just absolute. It was like going through a wet paper towel every time that he was going through that Titans offensive line.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this whole Cam Ward thing so interesting, because it really is tough to properly evaluate a quarterback that I think you could argue is in the worst situation for a rookie QB that we have seen maybe in the modern era. I mean, the only ones I think that come to mind that can maybe rival this is Matt Stafford when he was with the Lions. I mean, it is
it's bad.
That level of bad. And that was a team that was 0-16 when Matt Stafford came into it. And I mean, as you mentioned, Cam Ward has been far from perfect. I don't think anyone's going to shy away from that, but I mean, you just kind of look at what he's got out there too, man, in terms of not even just the playmakers in the offensive line, but the coaching staff. His head coach got fired 6 games into the season. The interim head coach arguably has been worse than the head coach that was fired. I mean, he can't make water in the wine at the end of the day. And it really is a tough deal for him. But at the same time, again, the biggest concern is seeing signs of regression. That's where I think the alarm bells really do start to kind of ring with Cam Ward, because that's what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, and I understand the argument of, there's nothing around him. But if you had taken the trade with the Giants, you could have built the roster up before you take the quarterback. Again, my response to that will always be, if you believe in a quarterback and you think you can find a franchise quarterback and you have the chance to take him, you take him, right? And that's what the Titans did. They felt convicted on Cam Ward. they took him. And if he ends up hitting, it's worth whatever picks you could have gotten offered for that number 1 overall selection. The good news is you're bad enough that hopefully you can take advantage of the value of the number 1 overall pick this year, when again, it's not like you're looking at it and saying, man, we drafted Cam Ward and now this guy's coming out this year. Man, I would love to be able to take this guy because he's the next Andrew Luck. That guy doesn't exist this year. So hopefully you get another team to fall in love with Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson or Dante Moore or whoever it is that's coming out that they believe is the number 1 overall pick, and you can take advantage of it, because this roster needs so much work. And man, I really hate that Jason is right, and they probably do need to invest more in the offensive line, because you've already spent top 100 picks in 5 of the last 6 drafts on offensive linemen. And really confidently, you can only say one of them has worked out, and that's Peter Skoronski. Really disappointing. But if you don't fix the offensive line, pretty much all of your other problems are going to continue to follow you. Your hope is J.C. Latham figures it out, but based on yesterday's game, I'm not so confident in that actually happening. But it's just such a tough situation right now. The coaching is horrible. The roster is horrible. Cam Ward has not played well, but it's you can't really fault him when he's got horrible weapons, a horrible offensive line, and a coach who, as Wes from Hermitage, I think, puts it brilliantly here, the Titans had one scripted drive and thought they could win the game 3-0. Horribly coached game. It's exactly right. The Titans get points on the board early and are like, all right, now we just have to not lose it. The Titans play every game not to lose instead of playing to win. And when you're 1-11, what's the point? Like, I get it. If you're heading into week 18 and you need a win badly and you're up by 3 and you're like, all right, we just got to hold on. Fine. You're 1-11. Don't play not to lose, because you're probably going to lose anyway. Your team's that bad. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you have thoughts, we will take them on our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll continue to talk Titans on the other side. The Titans desperately need leadership, and the players told us just as much yesterday with their play on the field and their words after the game. We'll get into that coming up next. Before we transition over to college football, talk some Vandy and some Vols, the Heisman race, the coaching carousel, and much more throughout the show. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, wrapping up hour number 1 on this Reaction Monday. Titans fall to 1-11 with a 25-3 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars yesterday, and we'll talk about it a lot through the week, setting up at least one of the more interesting games the Titans will play this year. Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward coming up on Sunday from Cleveland. Setting the over-under on sacks for Myles Garrett at 5.
After yesterday, that sounds about right.
He's already at 19 this year and still hasn't played the Titans. Michael Strahan, look out. That record might be up for grabs. He still holds it, right? TJ Watt didn't catch him, did he?
I think he
He
tied him. I'll have to double check
NFL
that.
single season sack record. I mean, already with 19 and you get to face the Titans this late. I would not doubt. Yeah. So TJ Watt did tie him 22.5 in 2021. So, he's already only 3.5 away. He could break it this week. He really could. I think Myles Garrett could break the sack record this week. All he needs is 4. That doesn't seem like that much. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. It became abundantly clear yesterday that the Titans desperately need a change in leadership. They need somebody who can come in and set a culture in this locker room because there isn't one right now. There really isn't. You look at what Cam Ward said after the game, and Cam saying, yeah, we need to be going for it on 4th and 3. What do we have to lose? And Mike McCoy saying, if it had been 4th and 2, we would have gone for it. Jeffrey Simmons being asked what they need in a new head coach and saying, we need a leader. We need somebody who can come in, command this locker room. Arden Key seemingly having stuff that he can't say because he'd get in trouble. There is no identity to this team right now. Mike McCoy has lost the locker room, right? And it's disappointing because usually interim head coaches do the opposite, right? It's like the guy before you, the message got stale, he wasn't performing enough, and you bring in the interim guy and he plays he plays it a little looser, nothing to lose, you're an interim head coach, and the players usually respect him for it, and they'll play for that guy. Mike McCoy has done the complete opposite, and it's clear that this team does not want to play for Mike McCoy. Like this team does not. I don't want to say they don't respect him, but they don't respect his leadership clearly because nobody's coming out and saying, hey, Mike McCoy should be the next head coach of this football team, which is usually what happens with interim head coaches, whether they deserve it or not. The players are usually the ones who are advocating for this guy. Look at Penn State with Terry Smith right now. You've got players holding up higher Terry signs. You saw it in LA with Bisaccia, Las Vegas with Bisaccia, and with who did they have last year? Who they fired?
Antonio Pierce.
Antonio Pierce. Yeah, like you've seen it with these interim head coaches. No one's holding up signs saying hire Mike. And I forget who called in and said if he gets an interview. I think it was Dustin. Dustin said if Mike McCoy gets an interview, he's going to be disgusted. Yeah, Mike McCoy should not get an interview to be the head coach of the Titans. It would be a complete waste of time to even talk to Mike McCoy after this season. His interview is these last 10 games that you've seen from him. And guess what? He failed. It has been horrible. And again, I said it after the last segment. We got 5 more games to get through. Just hunker down, Titans fans. It's almost over. The pain is almost over. And then we can go to the offseason where, at the very least, you can find some hope, right? Where you don't have to watch this team kick you every single time on Sunday that they go out on the field. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Fred is called in. Fred, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Game yesterday was determined when we kicked the field goal on the first drive.
The game was determined when they kicked the field goal?
The fate of the game was determined when the decision was made by the coaching staff to kick the field goal on that 4th down. The coaching staff said by their actions they have no confidence in any phase of the team's ability to do anything. They didn't trust the quarterback. They didn't trust the offensive line. They said, we're not going to win So let's just go ahead and get the 3 points and call it a day. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Fred. Yeah, that decision didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Your offense had some rhythm, and the explanation made even less sense of, oh, if it's 4th and 2, we were going for it. Well, Mike, 4th and 2 isn't close enough to QB sneak, which maybe that's the thought was, oh, we could sneak it if we get it a little closer. 4th and 2, you're probably passing the football. So did your best play for 4th down only get you 2 yards? Is that what you're telling us? Is that, oh, 4th and 2, we had a play for that. Didn't have a play for 4th and 3. Nothing that he says makes sense, and it's almost over. One more month. Jack on the text line says, please stop it. It's not the coach. The team organization stinks, in all caps. Can't both be true? Right? Like, yes, the team and the organization has been horrible for the last 5 years, basically, since you lost to the Bengals in the playoffs. But Mike McCoy's also not a good coach. Like, that both can be true, that the organization has failed over the last 5 years, but Mike McCoy has failed as the interim head coach. 9194 says they need to fire McCoy now. And I understand the sentiment of that because it's been as bad, if not worse, than Callahan. But firing the interim head coach not only sends your team into more disarray, because guess what? Then you'd have to move Bones Fossil probably to be your interim head coach, which maybe takes some of the special teams prowess that we've seen away. And you also just show how disoriented this organization is. Disorganized. You can't fire the interim head coach. You just got to, again, hunker down, take your beatings for the next 5 weeks, and move on to the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, you can't feed into the dysfunction that is the organization right now. Not only can you not do it for the sake of your team, but you can't do it even just from a perception perspective. Because right now, I don't think that there is an organization, arguably in all of professional sports, that is as dysfunctional as what the Tennessee Titans have been for the last 3 or 4 years. And that's not just Nashville media and Titans fans saying that. It has become a national talking point of how dysfunctional this organization is right now. If you are the first organization to ever fire an interim head coach, how much does that add to it? You can't do that.
I mean, Amy, we've already heard that Amy cares so much about the public perception. Like she said, I don't want to get slammed by the media for this head coaching hire. You can't fire the interim head coach. As much as he may deserve it, you can't do it. I mean, and I wrote this down too. We haven't even gotten to it yet. The Titans gave the Jaguars 10 points on penalties yesterday. Like that is a discipline issue of the key roughing the passer at the end of the half. The one thing you cannot do on a Hail Mary is get a defensive penalty. Trevor Lawrence was rolling out to his right. The half was over. Just let him go out of bounds or throw it into the seats. He was not going to complete a Hail Mary on that play. Arden Key gets called for roughing the passer, and boom, you give him 3 points at the end of the half. Then in the second half, the roughing the punter was a bad call, but you extended a drive that the Jaguars ended up putting the game away in. There is nothing going right for this team in terms of in-game coaching, in terms of discipline. It's horrible. And I agree that there are much worse underlying problems than Mike McCoy, but I am so excited to get a real head coach back to this organization. The bar is so low. It's so low for this next head coach. We talk about whether this job is attractive for head coaches, and I understand the outside view of, hey, you might get fired in 2 years, and do you like Cam Ward is going to be a big question. But you also go into it knowing that this team has won 10 games in 3 years. If you go out and go 5-12 next year, they might build you a statue outside the new stadium, because it has been that bad that if you can get this team back to any level of competency, you're going to be a hero. So we'll see. We got a month to go, and then we can start getting head coaching interviews and talk about who that's going to be, and then get towards the offseason where the Titans will hopefully add some more talent to this team. Let's go back to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Our friend Dr. Locke has called in. Dr. Locke, what you got for us today?
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
Doing great.
look, man, with the world of sports gambling and the uncertainty that is the NFL, the one certain is lay the points on the Titans. I mean, it was at halftime. You were up to what, 15-3. I mean, it was easy money. They were never gonna stay within 6.5 of a playoff team. That was easy money.
Yeah, it's not a bad point, Dr. Locke.
I mean, you bet against the Titans, right? You lay the points with the team they're playing, and it's coming in 80% of the time. Just saying, that's a solid. If I'm picking 60-65% winners. If I was picking 80% winners, I'd be living in Vegas.
Thanks for the call, and congrats to your Buckeyes. Good luck this weekend against Indiana.
I don't need luck, baby. I got Tate, right? I got Jeremiah Smith, and I got a Heisman quarterback. I'm just saying.
Thanks for the call, Dr. Locke. Heisman quarterback remains to be seen. We'll talk about that in the next hour. We are going to get off of the Titans here, get into some college football. Vanderbilt goes into Knoxville and beats the Vols by 21. Is it enough to get them into the college football playoff? Was it enough to get Diego Pavia a Heisman Trophy? We'll talk about it in the next hour. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Good first hour of the show talking Titans. We're going to move on to some happier topics around Nashville. For some people, I guess, maybe not as happy for anyone who is a Tennessee Volunteer fan. Vanderbilt goes into Knoxville and wins 45-24. Now, I'm not going to rub it in, but I will point out that Vols fans from the very beginning of this year doubted this Vanderbilt team. And I did not expect this season. I don't think anybody outside of that Vanderbilt locker room expected a 10-win season, right? Like, as optimistic as I was about the Commodores, I did not think they were going to win 10 games. But we had fans, and it wasn't all from Tennessee, from other schools saying they're not going to win more than 3 games this year. They're not going to be bowl eligible. Well, they're not going to end up with 8 wins. Oh, well, even if they win 9, they're not going to beat Tennessee. The goalpost kept moving, and every time Vanderbilt knocked it right through. 10-2, and they beat Tennessee by 21 points. They did everything that they could possibly do this weekend to get themselves into the college football playoff, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be enough, sadly. And that's the disappointing part is, yes, you can say Vanderbilt win one of the 2 games you lost and you're into the playoff. Obviously, they controlled their own destiny. It's not like they went 12-0 and are getting left out. They did lose some games, but coming out of the bye week, they had 2 games against Kentucky and Tennessee, and it already looked a little bit bleak, but it was like, hey, if you go get some style points, win those games in blowout fashion, you got a really good chance to make it. And they did exactly that. They went and we're up on Kentucky 45-3 before they pulled the starters. And then they go in and they dominate Tennessee in the second half on Saturday to win on the road, one of the most hostile environments in the country against your rival. You win by 21 points and just got absolutely zero help anywhere else. 3 weeks ago, we had the discussion of, well, 10-2, if they get to 10-2, they're going to be fine because it's not like all the other teams ahead of them are going to win every single game. And they did. They did. Oklahoma and Alabama, it was so close. I was on a flight during the end of that Tennessee Vandy game, and I was listening, but I was keeping track of the Oklahoma LSU game on like the Game Center app, like on ESPN. And when I saw that 57-yard touchdown or whatever from Mateer to Satania, my heart dropped because I'm like, if you were Vanderbilt, you needed one of the 2 SEC teams to lose. You needed Alabama. You needed Oklahoma. One of those teams had to lose because 6 SEC teams aren't getting in. 5 very well could. 6 aren't. And with Alabama escaping against Auburn, Oklahoma escaping against LSU, you hope that the committee is maybe reevaluating the resumes for those teams, but I feel like the committee honestly just stays with the precedents they set, and it's like, oh, well, they won. They're going to stay where they are, and Vanderbilt should jump Utah tomorrow. I don't know if they're going to go any further than that, and at that point, if you're 13th, there's not really a path on championship weekend for you to get in.
Yeah, and it's so crazy to me too, because like you said, Jake, who would have thought 3 or 4 months ago, outside of anyone in that locker room and Diego Pavia, who had been vocally telling all of us since about June or July that this was a championship contending team, who would have thought that Vanderbilt would even be in this discussion?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want that to be lost. I know obviously things are bleak and we live in a world now to where everything is so playoffs or bust. This is an undoubtedly successful season for Vanderbilt. And I don't want that to get lost.
Yes. And I will make the point that Vanderbilt not making the playoffs doesn't mean they are not a playoff caliber team.
No,
they are 100% a playoff caliber team. And I would think this resume in a 12-team playoff, 8 out of 10 years is a playoff team. This year, it just so happened that I'm looking at it. I think there are 15 teams you can make a legitimate case are playoff caliber teams. and only 10 of them are going to get in because you're going to get either 2 of the 4 between UVA, Duke, the American winner, and the Sun Belt winner, JMU, if they win, are going to get in. Those 4 teams are not playoff caliber teams. Congratulations for getting to your conference championship. And, the top 5 conference champions get in. Those are the rules. You are not a playoff caliber team. There are 15 playoff caliber teams. Only 10 of them are going to get in. So there are going to be a lot of teams that played well enough most years to make the playoff. Sadly, this year, there's just too many. And for Vanderbilt, you mentioned it, no one thought they would go 10-2 at the beginning of the year. But I think if you had asked anybody at the beginning of the season, if Vanderbilt goes 10-2, do they get into the playoff? And 100% of people would say yes. I get it. It's how the season turned out. Your wins that you had that were top 15 at the time didn't turn out to be as quality as some of the other wins for these other teams. It's just disappointing that, you go 10-2 and it doesn't look like Vanderbilt's going to get in. I guess my intro only has one more week where it's going to be able to be accurate, where I say 10 wins as an SEC school, you're in. We might have to swap that because as of right now, Vanderbilt probably going to be on the outside looking in. Tomorrow is the big day. As much as the selection show is next Sunday, it really is tomorrow where they're going to release these rankings. And if Vanderbilt has to be 11th to have any chance to get it. You would need help. But if they're 11th, they have a shot. Anything lower than that, there's just not enough chaos that could happen on championship weekend to get you in.
Yeah, and it's funny. I tweeted this out after the Tennessee game Saturday, just with Vanderbilt's resume in general. I feel like at least the positive for Vanderbilt fans and for this Vanderbilt team is that even if they don't get in, with them winning in Knoxville on Saturday, they are forcing the committee's hand to make them say,
right,
you aren't in.
Yep.
They didn't take themselves out. They could have gone to Knoxville and laid an egg against a rival who, by the way, I know Tennessee came in at 8-3. The Vols were getting up for that game. They heard all the noise from Diego Pavia and the Any Given Saturday documentary. They have had this game circled on the calendar for months. And if you don't believe me, look on Twitter and see half of the tweet from Tennessee's fans.
Read our text
over
line.
The last 6 months. Read our text lines, read the articles. I mean, this was a game that Tennessee had circled on the calendar for a long time. And Vanderbilt didn't just go in and win. They went in and dominated that game.
Yeah.
If you take away the 2 turnovers, Vanderbilt maybe wins that game by 4 possessions.
Right. Diego Pavia did the same thing he did against Alabama. I think he was pressing a little too hard early, but Vanderbilt showed that they were the better team overall. Diego Pavia played great in the second half, but they were the better team. They went out, they got style points. They put their resume on the committee's desk and said, leave us out. I sadly think the committee's going to oblige, but I really hope that they take a good hard look at the resumes. I've been arguing for weeks. Vanderbilt's resume is better than Notre Dame's. It's better than Miami's. I don't see them changing it.
You mind if I read the resume actually out?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have it right in front of me. So Vanderbilt 10-2 in the SEC, and this is as of Saturday, so things could have changed since, but 12th strength of record, 25th strength of schedule, both of their losses on the road to ranked teams, and they have a convincing win versus a ranked rival. And if you all know the comparisons between BYU, Utah, and Miami in terms of strength of schedule, Vandy's strength of record is higher than both Utah and Miami. It's 5 spots below BYU. They have the highest strength of schedule of any of those teams, being 25th.
Yep.
So the resume is all there. And to me, I think that them being ranked behind Miami during their bye week was a death sentence.
Yes.
I think that if that doesn't happen, you're talking about Vanderbilt maybe being around that 11th spot, and I think you can make a case of them being there, rightfully so. Them getting ranked behind Miami 2 weeks ago and they didn't even play, to me, that kind of showed the committee's hand of what they thought of Vanderbilt and that they were ceiling.
Yeah, we'll talk about this on the other side, but the committee seems to just pick and choose which reason they want to use to rank certain teams over others. It's like, for some of them, it's like, oh, well, look at their strength of record. And then it's, oh, well, head-to-head matters, but it doesn't matter that much. We view them as a complete team. Carson Beck has 800 passing yards in the last 3 weeks. Like, they don't have any consistency on why they're ranking teams above others. And I get it can't be just straight up strength of record. There has to be an eye test component to it, but they're only using it selectively. of, oh, the eye test shows you that Notre Dame is better than this team. Well, doesn't the eye test of Vanderbilt going into Knoxville and blowing out Tennessee push them above, some of these teams that, Notre Dame played Stanford this weekend. Sorry, Syracuse the week before where they put up 70. Vanderbilt, I don't know. Resume wise, I think it's close, but Vanderbilt deserves to be more in the conversation than they have been over the past couple of weeks.
And then not only that, but you just talk about the consistency there, Jake. I guarantee you that when the committee is looking at Vanderbilt's resume and they see the wins versus South Carolina and LSU and Missouri, they're not viewing those as ranked wins.
Yeah.
While when they talk about Oregon, they say, oh, well, Penn State, that we are still taking into a factor.
Right.
Well, that was number 2 in the country in September, but Penn State barely made a bowl game this
Yes.
year. You have to keep it consistent.
If you're going to consider Penn State a good win for Oregon, LSU should definitely be a good win for Vanderbilt because both those teams fired their coaches. And with LSU, that team's still talented, but you could tell once they fired the coach, I think there was a little bit of a lack of caring. They have a new coach, by the way. We'll get into that later on in the show. What a saga down in Oxford this weekend. We'll get into all of it coming up in just a bit, but continuing to talk about Vanderbilt in the college football playoff. I said there are 15 playoff caliber teams. I'm going to go through who are locks, and then there are 3 spots open for 8 teams. And I don't think Vanderbilt's going to end up in that top 3. We'll talk about it. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 125 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby with you on this Monday. Let's give something away. Be caller number 3, and you will win a pair of tickets to see the Nashville Predators take on the Calgary Flames at Bridgestone Arena tomorrow night. Puck drops at 7 o'clock. Again, caller number 3, 615-737-1025 to win a pair of Preds tickets for their game tomorrow night against the Flames. Talking college football here in hour number 2. Vanderbilt went into Knoxville and got a 45-24 win, getting to 10-2, first 10-win season in program history. Will it be enough to get them into the college football playoff? It's not looking like it. 3 weeks ago, we thought that, hey, 10-2, there's going to be some chaos. It's November in college football. Some of these teams you need to lose are going to lose, and none of them did. And I said in the last segment, I think there are 15 playoff caliber teams. Only 10 spots are going to go to those playoff caliber teams because 2 of the 3 between the ACC, the group, the American, and JMU out of the Sun Belt are going to end up getting playoff spots. And they are not playoff caliber teams, but they're going to get playoff spots because of the rules. 2438 says playoff caliber and championship caliber are 2 different things. There's 3 teams that can win a national title. There's 15 that can make the playoffs. 12 of those teams aren't the caliber to win a national title. And I agree with you. I don't think that just because you're a caliber of team that can get into the playoff means you can win in the playoffs. For sure. I think Ohio State is likely going to run away with a national championship. They are that talented. Georgia's really good too. Indiana's been really good. But Ohio State should be the heavy favorite to win the national title. But 15 teams, I think, are playoff caliber. I think 7 of them are locks. No matter what happens on championship Saturday, these teams are going to get in. Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas A&M. Those 7 teams, I don't see anything possibly happening to knock them out of the playoffs. Now, some of those teams, like Texas Tech, if they lost to BYU, I think they would fall down from maybe getting a bye, maybe hosting a first-round game, to being on the road in the first round if they lose to BYU. Ole Miss, I think there's a chance that with all of the turmoil with Lane Kiffin, coaches leaving, possibly players leaving, maybe they move down and they're playing on the road in the first round of the playoff. I don't think you can leave an 11-1 team out just because their coach left. I know I've seen stuff like that. If they had lost to Mississippi State, maybe. But 11-1, they're in. Oregon is in at 11-1. Texas A&M is in. We can have a discussion about the Aggies' resume if you'd like to, but they're 11-1 in the SEC. They're in. I know they haven't really beaten anybody in the SEC, but they're in. So that leaves you 3 spots for these 8 teams, and I would argue all 8 of them have a resume that is at least worth discussing for being in the playoff. Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, BYU, Miami, Vanderbilt, Utah, Texas. All those teams, at the very least, have a resume worth discussing. Utah, I don't think is going to get in. I don't think Utah among those teams probably has the worst of the resumes. They're 10-2. Yes, they blew out the bad teams they played, but they lost to the good teams they played. They probably should have lost each of the last 2 games of their season against Kansas State and Kansas. So I test Utah. They don't deserve it. Texas, there's going to be people, stumping for Texas. 9-3 with their resume in most years, I think at least deserves consideration, right? They did schedule that Ohio State game. And if they had scheduled a cupcake that week, would they have gotten in at 10-2? I don't know. The Florida loss is what's keeping them out. If they had lost to Ohio State and lost to Georgia and just beat Florida, they would be in, and they would be comfortably in. They would be in that lock category, not in the group we're discussing now, if they just beaten Florida. Because their 2 losses would have been against 2 top 5 teams, and they would have beaten 3 top 10 teams, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. So, yeah, for sure, they would be comfortably in. But you did lose to Florida. And that loss, I think, is disqualifying for that Texas team, considering how many other teams are on the bubble here. So, that leaves you with 6 teams fighting for 3 spots. And right now they're going to Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama. I don't really see that changing based on this week's results.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is where you're going to hear a lot of clamoring about, well, Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference. Who is Notre Dame beaten? And as much as people do kind of like to clamor about Utah and BYU, and I get it, you can maybe make that argument for Notre Dame because their best wins are probably Pitt, and that's about it. I mean, they don't have the best resume in the world either. Yeah, USC. Thanks for reminding me there. Which you could argue how impressive those wins are, but Notre Dame at 10-2 is always going to be in. They are a lock. I mean, realistically, you could say Oklahoma's not playing great right now, but the Alabama win, I think, pushes them forward.
Right.
Sure, they lost to Texas, but they also beat they have enough wins to get in. And then again, Alabama, if Auburn somehow pulls off the upset, they're undoubtedly out. I don't think that losing in the SEC championship is going to push a team like Alabama out.
No.
We saw that precedent set last season with SMU making it in, despite losing to a worse Clemson team that wasn't even in consideration before getting the auto bid. I don't see a path for Vanderbilt right now. It might be one of the first teams out, but I mean, like, they might be one of those first 2 teams left out.
Right.
That's possible, but I don't think enough has happened for them to push their way in unless the committee really loved what they saw on Saturday and pushes them for like 3 or 4 spots. And I know the AP poll isn't the same as the CFP poll, but considering that Vanderbilt got dropped the spot in the AP, I don't feel particularly confident that the committee is going to be that far off from them, considering the AP's even been a little bit higher on Vandy than what the committee's been.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to make an argument for Vanderbilt getting in, it would start with half of the field being SEC teams, right? And I know we get called SEC homers all the time. If you're going to argue for Vanderbilt to be in, it would be over Notre Dame, BYU, Miami. And I think there is a sound argument, if you're looking at resumes, that Vanderbilt is the best, is the most deserving team out of that group. However, you're not going to get in over Alabama because Alabama beat you. And you're probably not going to get in over Oklahoma because Oklahoma beat Alabama, right? It's like when you have the head-to-head results, you should use them. And Vanderbilt sadly ends up on the wrong end of that chain. Now, they didn't get a chance to play Oklahoma, but you end up Oklahoma beat Alabama, Bama beat Vanderbilt, so therefore that's the order they should be placed in. And right or wrong, that's probably how the committee's going to see it. For the other teams, I think there's a fair argument to be made that Vanderbilt deserves to be in over Notre Dame and Miami. And if BYU got blown out in the conference championship game, I think they could fall behind. We'll see what the committee thinks. I don't think that they're going to pull Notre Dame out.
Nah, I mean, it's Notre Dame at the end of the day. And I think that they're going to reward Notre Dame for likely scheduling 2 playoff teams at the beginning of the year in Texas A&M and Miami. Despite losing those 2 games, they lost both of them close, so it's not like they were blowouts. And again, I think Notre Dame has perfected the formula for this current system.
Schedule your tough games early.
Yeah, schedule your tough games early. You don't play in a conference, and you don't have to necessarily schedule cupcakes, but you schedule middle-tier ACC, Big 12 teams that more than likely are going to be inferior to you, but they're recognizable names enough to where you can say, okay, that's a solid win. Like USC, that's going to be seen as a solid win.
Yeah.
And I don't think USC is a bad team, but was USC ever seriously a playoff threat? I don't really think so.
Well, right.
Same thing with Pitt.
If you compare the wins and losses, Vanderbilt and Notre Dame, it's pretty much identical, right? Like the Alabama loss is going to probably end up in around the same tier as the Texas A&M loss. Vanderbilt did lose that game on the road, not at home. The Miami loss is about the same tier as the Texas loss, teams that just missed out on the playoff. It's about the same. USC and Tennessee, I would argue, are very similar wins for those 2 teams. Vanderbilt's was on the road. Was Notre Dame at USC? I don't remember.
I believe that was at Notre Dame.
It was in South Bend. So there you go. I would say Pitt and Missouri are probably about the same. The resumes stack up pretty well through your losses and your best wins, but you keep moving down. Like Vanderbilt's wins over Virginia Tech and South Carolina and Auburn, those are better than Stanford and Syracuse and some of the teams that and Arkansas and Purdue that Notre Dame played. again, we've gone through this. The committee clearly doesn't agree with me. I would think that Vanderbilt's resume stacks up better than Notre Dame's. The eye test, I guess, is playing a big factor in that one. We can have this discussion on the other side, though, of head-to-head results seem to matter some places, but not others. And if there is a scenario where only one spot is left between Notre Dame and Miami, who should get in? We can have that conversation on the other side. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman. Brandon Bigsby with you on this Monday morning. Hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. We're discussing the college football playoff. We will get what I think are the really definitive rankings tomorrow of who's going to make it. Yes, there could be some chaos this weekend, but for the most part, I think we will find out what the basis for the 12-team bracket is going to look like tomorrow night when the rankings come out. Vanderbilt likely not going to be in, and we were looking through the bubble teams right now. I think there are 3 spots available for Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, BYU, Miami, Vanderbilt, Utah, Texas. And the only way I think Vanderbilt could get in is if they start to agree with us and say that Vanderbilt's resume is better than Notre Dame's and Miami's. And I think that is an argument that needs to be had. The committee should pull those 3 together and have a discussion of those 10-2 teams, who is the best, who has the most deserving resume. And I think if you go through it, I think Vanderbilt would end up at the top of that. But it seems like they have already decided Notre Dame is a tier above those teams because the committee has come out and said, well, we aren't comparing Notre Dame and Miami in the same pool right now. And that's why the head-to-head result doesn't come into play. But let's say there is some chaos this weekend. Right now, Alabama is serving as a buffer for the College Football Playoff Committee. Having Alabama in between Notre Dame and Miami allows them to make that argument of, well, we think Notre Dame is the better team overall. We aren't even comparing them with Miami. But let's say Alabama wins, or Alabama loses this weekend. So they're 10-3. But BYU wins. BYU wins the Big 12, forcing themselves into the playoff. Texas Tech, I think, would still be in. Maybe not. But I think Texas Tech would still be in. So that takes away one of those at-large spots, which would push Alabama out. Could you put Notre Dame in and leave Miami out? If both those teams are 10-2 and Miami has a head-to-head win over Notre Dame, could you leave Miami out? And that is probably the biggest chaos this weekend. I would argue Vanderbilt should be above both of those teams. I've been told I'm wrong, and the committee is saying that I'm wrong. So if I was making a bracket, I would put 6 SEC teams in. Ben on the text line says, as of now, aren't 5 SEC teams going to get in? No way that Vandy gets in as a 6th. I would do it. I think the resumes match up, but I don't think the committee is going to do it. So they may have to make that decision to leave Miami out for Notre Dame, even though Miami beat Notre Dame. Crazy. That would set a very dangerous precedent of basically saying the results on the field don't matter. And I don't know how you can do that with head-to-head results when these teams are so close and only one of them is going to get into the playoff. And there's not the buffer of, oh, well, there's another team getting in as well. So we think Miami is below them. You have to make that decision between Notre Dame and Miami. And the committee is going to set a precedent that head-to-head results don't matter if they put Notre Dame in and leave Miami out. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Miles has called in on our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Miles, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for the time. So I'm a huge Vandy fan, and people could say I'm, being biased here, but one of the things that drives me crazy about the fact that with Oklahoma is sitting where they are is I guess it's been swept under the rug because it was so early in the season, but they literally have an illegitimate win against Auburn. I'm screaming it on Facebook and my 10 followers to hear, and I thought I'm going to call the radio show. Maybe a few more people hear about it. It feels me that Oklahoma, they've got that win over Auburn that admittedly they didn't deserve. It was to the point that the SEC either suspended or fired that crew or something like that. There were so many bad calls. I just find that sort of ridiculous where they're sitting there. That's just my opinion on part of the issue with the playoff bracket where it's at now too.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Miles. It's a very good point that gets forgotten about. That, yeah, they missed that call of it was what the player was hiding on the sideline, and that's illegal. The ref didn't see it, didn't call it, ended up being the game-winning touchdown for Oklahoma. It's a good point. I've been thinking about this the last couple of days, and it's kind of interesting, a little bit ironic, I guess, if I know what that word means. Vanderbilt fans, including, I mean, I was rooting against them too, were likely rooting against Tennessee hard in the games against Georgia and Oklahoma. Right? It's a rival. You never want to see your rival win. But if either of those two results were flipped, I think Vanderbilt might get in. Not only does that make your Tennessee win better, because it would have basically been a play-in game between Tennessee and Vanderbilt of, hey, winner gets to stay alive in the playoff race, makes that win look better for Vanderbilt. It also could have knocked Oklahoma out or knocked Georgia down a rung. I remember, laughing a little bit when that field goal went wide right for Tennessee against Georgia. You wonder, and obviously, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a happy Christmas. But maybe a couple of things going the other way might have ended up putting Vanderbilt in a different spot. 615-737-1025. Let's go to Robert on the phone lines. Robert, thanks for calling. What you got for us?
Well, I'm just weighing in on considering who the teams played and who they lost to. I think Miami lost to an unranked team.
Their losses are to Louisville and SMU.
Yeah, so I don't see them in the race. But my question is, Notre Dame, I don't think the committee is really concerned about the 12 best teams. I think I think money's still at play. Notre Dame beat Oregon. Other than that, who did they play?
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame lost their two good games. They beat USC. They beat Pitt. Those would be their two quality wins.
Yeah, and who did Vanderbilt play? And they lost. Both losses were away games.
Yeah. Yep, against two teams that are at least in the playoff conversation.
So I don't see Notre Dame getting knocked out. If they do, then I'll believe the committee. Otherwise, they're still following the money.
Yeah,
but that's just my take.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Robert. And brand bias is something that's going to get thrown around a lot. The gold helmets and the U getting in over Vanderbilt. I understand all that. The argument from a lot of people is, well, Notre Dame's the better team, right? And Notre Dame would be favored by a touchdown against Vanderbilt or 10 points against Vanderbilt. Like, it's not, if that's what you're using to decide who gets into the playoff, then just let the sports books do it. Just say, hey, Vegas odds makers, who would be the 12 teams that you would put in? Like, hey, 1 would be favored over 2, 2 would be favored over 3, and so on and so forth on a neutral field. If that's what you want to do, great. We can have the college football playoff invitational where the 12 quote unquote best teams get in. The job of the committee isn't to find the best teams. It is to find the most deserving teams. And maybe I'm wrong on that. And I know people have said, well, you want the best games. Sure, TV wants the best games. I think you should reward the teams that deserve it the most. And when I look at Miami, Notre Dame, and Vanderbilt's resumes, I think Vanderbilt deserves it the most. Clearly, they disagree. Notre Dame's going to get in, but it's disappointing that I think it's getting confused of, well, they want the best teams. If that's the case, again, just look at who has the highest star rankings on their recruits. Then choose the committee, the playoff that way. You got to actually care about the results that happen on the field. And if you do, I think Vanderbilt should be in.
Yeah, and I think that is something that within this whole college football playoff discourse, we have to figure out a way to define what is the best and what is the most deserving. If you're saying best in terms of talent, then to me, it's already decided before the season even starts. You're going to have Texas as one of the top teams, and I don't think you could argue that they might not deserve to be in because they lost a really bad game at Florida with a team that fired their head coach 2 weeks later.
Yep.
And Vanderbilt wouldn't even be in the conversation because coming in, no one thought Vanderbilt would win more than 7 games. You have to find a way to kind of decipher those two teams. And it's funny because we talked about the Notre Dame and Miami thing. I'm looking at their resumes, and we talked about Vanderbilt and Miami, or Vanderbilt and Notre Dame having very similar resumes. Well, those two are right next to each other as well. Strength of record, Notre Dame 13, Miami 14. Strength of schedule, Notre Dame 42, Miami 44. So there's not really a whole lot separating those two, aside from Miami having the head-to-head and Miami having two unranked losses, while Notre Dame has two ranked losses, one of them to Miami.
If only there was a way to know who is the better team between Notre Dame and Miami. Too bad. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll continue talking college football on the other side. Sadly, it doesn't look like Vanderbilt is going to get into the college football playoff, but I think Diego Pavia has done more than enough to get himself to New York, and he might win the whole thing and take home the Heisman Trophy. We'll talk about it next. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby alongside you on this Monday morning. The regular season has ended in college football. Vanderbilt with their first 10-win season in program history. Got to give credit to Clark Lee, Jerry Kill, the roster, Diego Pavia. Everybody has stepped up and turned this from a team that went 2-10 2 years ago and lost their final 10 games of the season to 10-2 and on the bubble for the college football playoff. Again, you don't want to take moral victories. No one in that building wants to hear, well, you had a great season no matter what the committee says. They want to be in the college football playoff, and they feel like they've done enough to get into the college football playoff. But still, a lot of credit has to be given to how fast they've turned that around. And of course, while we were on break this weekend, Clark Lee signs an extension. So going to stick around on West End. Great to see from Clark Lee. But Diego Pavia, he had a lot of doubters heading into this year. He went around SEC Media Days. I was there in Atlanta watching him go around from stop to stop and telling everybody that he wants to win the national championship and they're going to run the state of Tennessee. He wants to win the Heisman. And they may come short of a national championship, but he may win the Heisman Trophy. If I had a vote, he would get it as of right now. I think statistically, he measures up better than Mendoza or Sayin. Now, yeah, those teams are 12-0, but Diego Pavia doesn't have Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate. Fernando Mendoza is playing really well, but how much better is he? Curtis Rourke took that team to 11-1 last year. And I know Fernando Mendoza's played better than Curtis Rourke. Mendoza might be a legit NFL top 5 pick. So, of course, he deserves consideration. I think all three of those guys and probably Jeremiah Love should be sitting in seats in New York coming up in a couple of weeks. But Diego Pavia deserves to win it right now. The issue is he doesn't get one last chance to prove himself. And it is a what have you done for me lately award where the last thing the committee saw, Diego Pavia put on a show. He threw the 2 picks early. He bounced back. He made plays down the stretch to win that game. And he should get all the credit in the world for leaving a great final impression on the Heisman voters. But Sayin and Mendoza play each other this week. And I just wonder if that is going to end up being the deciding factor for a lot of voters, especially the voters up there in Big Ten country of, all right, well, these two teams are 12-0. They're the number 1 and the number 2 teams in the country, and their quarterbacks are Heisman contenders. Basically, winner gets the trophy. I'm wondering if there is some of that among the Heisman voters. The best hope for Diego Pavia, and if you're a Vanderbilt fan hoping that Pavia wins the Heisman, I'm sure all of you are, root for a 10-7 finish in that game or something like that. Root for that to be a defensive struggle where Arvell Reese has 4 sacks, Caleb Downs picks off Fernando Mendoza twice, and Julian Sayin just does barely enough to win the game for Ohio State. Because I think if that happens, Diego Pavia is a shoo-in. I saw On3 release their Heisman poll earlier today, and Diego Pavia is on top. If you're looking at the resumes right now of these players, you can't argue to me that Diego Pavia doesn't deserve to win the Heisman. He deserves it head and shoulders above Sayin and Mendoza right now. But again, final impressions are important. The national spotlight is going to be on that Big Ten championship on Saturday night with Sayin versus Mendoza. I do worry that the winner of that game is going to get enough of a bump to win it before the ballots are due on Sunday. We will see. I think this might be one of the more intriguing Heisman ceremonies of all time, right? Like most of the time, the Heisman ceremonies, maybe there's a little intrigue, but you kind of know. Last year, maybe Genty was going to win it, but I think most people knew it was going to be Travis Hunter. This year, you might head in and it's 50-50 down the middle between Pavia and whoever wins that game. I think Diego deserves it. We will see if the voters agree, but based on the way he finished this season, taking Vanderbilt to a 10-2 record, 10 wins for the first time in program history, I don't know how you don't vote for Diego Pavia.
Yeah, and I think it's important too is you have to remember what exactly is the Heisman Trophy winner. Is it the player that is the best player statistically, or is it the player who is most important to his team in the country while also having the success to back it up on top of that. And to me, Julian Sayin, it's no disrespect to him. I think he is a good quarterback. I think that you could put a lot of quarterbacks in the Power Four behind that Ohio State team, and they would be 12-0 without any questions asked. Mendoza, I think you have a little bit more of a case for, but again, he joined a team that finished 11-2 last season. It's not as if he just came in and elevated this program. This is a team that was very good last season as well with another starting quarterback. Diego Pavia has changed this Vanderbilt program from top to bottom. If you put any other quarterback outside Diego Pavia probably into this Vanderbilt team, I don't think they win 10 games, not just because of what he's able to do, but the way he has changed the culture, the mentality, and the way that program operates now. There is no other player in the country that is more important to a team and a program than what Diego Pavia is. I don't even think that's necessarily debatable.
It's a perfect way to frame it there. And Kevin says the same thing on our text line. Put Sayin or Mendoza on Vanderbilt. Are they as successful? I would say no. And maybe that's not the argument that can win it for him. I don't think he needs it. Put the stats next to each other. He's responsible for 4,000 yards and more touchdowns than both of those guys. And it's not like they all came against Charleston Southern and Utah State. In November, he played his best football to help Vanderbilt get into the college football playoff conversation. Pavia should win the Heisman. And barring a 400-yard, 5-touchdown performance from one of those guys in Indianapolis on Saturday, I don't think you can change my mind that Diego Pavia deserves the Heisman.
And to me, there's value in somebody saying they're going to do something and then going out and doing it. Diego Pavia has been the most outspoken player in college football for probably a year and a half now.
Yep.
Everyone knows Diego Pavia. Everyone knows what he has done, and everyone knows what he has said. He said that Vanderbilt was going to be a college football playoff contender. He said he was going to be a Heisman contender. He said he feels he is the best player in the country, and he has backed every single thing he has said so far. I think that has to count for something.
He backed it up completely. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Marshall is on the line wanting to chime in. Marshall, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. So I guess a little bit kind of a preface about myself. I'm 4 years old and have been watching college football for years as just kind of a casual fan. This is like the first time I've ever started paying attention to rankings and college football playoffs and Heisman candidates. So having said that, this might be a pretty dumb question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. I want Diego Pavia to win the Heisman, as everybody does. But I see a lot of interceptions from him. And every time I see an interception, I kind of think to myself, well, he's kind of taken himself out of the Heisman running. Now, he recovers very, very well. But I just want to get your opinion on if those kind of really dumb interceptions might play a role in his Heisman candidacy. So hang up and listen. Thanks.
Thank you for the call. Yeah, I mean, the interceptions on Saturday against Tennessee definitely didn't have him in a great spot. And the first one was bad. It was very similar to the Alabama fumble he had early in that game of, man, you just needed 3 points there and you gave it away for no reason. But he's only thrown 8 interceptions this year. He's thrown 12 in 2 seasons at Vanderbilt. I don't think that's going to hurt him all that much. You look at Julian Sayin, he's thrown, how many has he thrown this year? He's thrown 5 this year. So
yeah, him and Mendoza both have thrown
5. So I mean, it's 3 more, but that's not going to be the deciding factor in the Heisman is how many picks they've thrown. It's not like unless you throw like 15. I don't think the interceptions are going to take away from the achievements that you have. And Diego Pavia has done more good than he has done harm, despite some of those turnovers. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on whether Diego Pavia should win the Heisman Trophy. And also the coaching carousel spinning this weekend. We'll get into it next. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour on this Monday. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We'll talk some more Titans later on in the show, but it was a wild weekend, not just on the field in college football, but off the field as well. The coaching carousel spinning full speed on Sunday. Let's start with the Lane Kiffin saga. What a weekend down there in Oxford. You beat Mississippi State and lock up a spot in the playoff. Best season in who knows how long for Ole Miss. But no one can focus on it because Lane Kiffin continues to tease that he might be heading to LSU. And he officially announced it on Sunday. Saturday, it seemed like it was heading in that direction. And, I do want to start with the whole thing and him and the reporter down there in Oxford, Brandon. I mean, I don't understand Lane Kiffin's thought process there to go after this reporter for making that comment. And the comment, fair or not, from a guy who covers Ole Miss on a daily basis, like not something I would have done as somebody who, if I'm covering Vanderbilt on a daily basis and Clark Lee's thinking about leaving, like I would not say that and have to go face the music on that. You got to be prepared for the consequences. But for Lane Kiffin to go after the reporter and then do exactly what he said is pretty hilarious to me. Like, it's like, prove him wrong then, stay. And he didn't stay.
That was step one in what would end up being a long, long list of missteps of Lane Kiffin pretty much burning everything to the ground that he built for 5 years.
Yes. I mean, I understand the move. LSU is one of those elite jobs in the SEC, in the country. The money, the brand, everything. It makes sense. I had the discussion with Parker and I believe Corey Curtis 2 weeks ago of if there's a job Josh Heupel would leave Tennessee for, LSU is one of them, right? Like that brand is bigger than Ole Miss or Tennessee. It just is. So I understand it, but the way he handled it was just so poor. And what did he think that he was trying to convince the administration to let him coach through the playoff? It's like, sorry, we're not going to let you just coach our team and stay in control of this program while you're leaving for one of our conference rivals. Sorry, that's not going to happen. And I'm interested to see the aftermath here of how many coaches leave. I saw the video of Charlie Weiss, their offensive coordinator, was getting on the plane to Baton Rouge. Apparently, Lane said, if you're not on that plane to Baton Rouge, you're not going to be on my staff in Baton Rouge. So the coaches are clearly, some of them are leaving. How many players follow him? The transfer portal window opens up in 5 days, 4 days now. So at the end of this week, any Ole Miss player that wants to transfer can do it for 15 days. Now, if I was an Ole Miss player, even if I was going to follow Lane Kiffin to LSU, I would probably just wait and do it in the normal transfer portal window so I can go play for a national championship. But there might be some guys who are loyal to Lane Kiffin or their position coach or whoever it is who's leaving, and they hop in the portal. And I hate it for Ole Miss. That's it's a fan base that finally was starting to see some success. And I think if Lane Kiffin stayed and did exactly what he's done for the last 3 or 4 years, he would have been a legend there. But Lane is Lane. Ludacris may have said it best. And he decided to head on to LSU. And Pete Golding, now the head coach at Ole Miss permanently. I did love the quote that came out in the story yesterday of apparently they were watching the Iron Bowl at the Ole Miss, the Manning Center, the Ole Miss facility. And Pete Golding told Lane Kiffin, why don't you go watch the rest of this at home? This isn't your office anymore. I mean, I love it. Ole Miss, I think, is handling this as well as they could have. They're keeping the focus on the team that has been so talented and trying to use the momentum from this season to continue the growth of this program. I do wonder about not holding a formal coaching search, though, because, Pete Golding may end up being good, but, I would rather at least give a look at some of the other options out there. We've seen it with I go back to Mike Vrabel when he was hiring offensive coordinators. You never went out of house, right? Like Matt LaFleur leaves, you went in-house, you hired Arthur Smith, and it worked out great. Arthur Smith leaves, you hire Todd Downing. It doesn't work out great. And you did the same thing with Tim Kelly. Like sometimes the guy in-house ends up being great, but sometimes not so much. I do wonder about that decision from Ole Miss, but you also are entering the fray of this coaching search so late that maybe it doesn't make sense to do a full search at this point. But what a saga between Kiffin and Ole Miss and LSU. It's finally over. Lane Kiffin is going to be the head coach of the Bayou Bengals, and Ole Miss gets ready for the playoff. I did just see that part of Lane Kiffin's contract. Did you see this, Brandon?
Oh, I didn't. I did not see it.
Part of Lane Kiffin's contract that he negotiated, or Jimmy Sexton negotiated, is that LSU will pay out Lane Kiffin's postseason bonuses for Ole Miss. So if Ole Miss goes and wins the national championship without him, Lane Kiffin gets $1 million.
That's nuts, man.
Crazy. Wow. And I believe it was from a reputable source. I believe it was, but it's crazy. But that's the world that we live in college football. Jeremy in Clarksville on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says Kiffin said he needed to pray on it. The bank god told him he needed more money. Surprise. It's a good one from Jeremy. Wes from Hermitage says, if you take Lane out of Ole Miss, are they a real playoff team? If he isn't coaching moving forward, is Ole Miss still as good as we think they are? This is such a Lane Kiffin type of scenario, such a clown. And I agree with you, Wes. If they had lost that game to Mississippi State on Friday and then Lane Kiffin left, I think you have to hold them out. And I hate that you're punishing the kids for the coach's decision to leave. But if that had happened and they were 10-2 and they were thrown right into the thick of, all right, who are we picking between Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Bama, and Vanderbilt? We can only take 3. You're going to leave the team that just lost their coach. And luckily for Ole Miss, unluckily for the rest of the teams, Ole Miss won. And you can't leave them out at 11-1. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're playing on the road in the first round, not at home, because of all of this fallout.
Yeah. And, and obviously with Lane Kiffin and his reputation, he's going to get a lot of flack for this whole thing, and much of it very well deserved. But I also do have to say, and I'm not a Lane Kiffin defender by any stretch, because he is one of the best quotes that I've seen about this whole thing is that only Lane Kiffin could burn a bridge while trying to stand on it. And that's pretty much what he's tried to do.
Yep.
But this college football calendar's got to get fixed, man. I mean, it has got to
get fixed. It does.
That has been a huge wrench in this entire thing, because now with the transfer portal and with NIL and with the signing period being just a matter of days.
National Signing Day starts Wednesday.
Yeah. He almost had to leave to an extent. You can't really afford to basically coach 2 teams at one time, especially when a school is giving you over $90 million to come there, right, and they're an SEC rival.
Yeah, and LSU, I'm sure their recruiting class would be fine no matter what. There are kids who are not committing to the coach, they're committing to the brand. But there are a lot of guys out there who I think probably wouldn't have signed if you didn't know who the head coach was going to be. And that's why it's important. Penn State still doesn't have a head coach. And we can talk about that on the other side and some of the other moves around the coaching carousel. We saw 3 other SEC jobs fill up yesterday. Florida, Auburn, and Arkansas all have their head coaches. Ole Miss decides to stay in-house. So right now, no openings in the SEC. That could possibly change depending on Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky.
Yes, Mark Stoops is gone. We've already gotten Dustin and Dustin's thoughts on that. We know Connor Newt is happy. But Penn State still open. Where do they go next? We'll talk about all of that on the other side. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 102.5 The Game. This holiday season, 1025 The Game is looking out for the kiddos. We want to donate a bunch of stuffed toys to the Nashville Children's Alliance to be given to kids this holiday, but we can't do it without you. Join us at a Dunkin' location near your neighborhood the week of December 8th through the 12th to drop off a stuffed toy that a child will love. Find the locations now at thegamenashville.com/toy. Also, we would like to thank the Metro Nashville Police Department for all of their help with this promotion as well. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up here on this Monday, 1025 The Game. Looking through the coaching carousel, college football saw multiple jobs open up or close yesterday and open up. That's kind of how it works. So John Summerall goes to Florida, Alex Golesh to Auburn, Ryan Silverfield to Arkansas, Lane Kiffin, of course, to LSU. Pete Golding elevated as the head coach at Ole Miss. So now what does Penn State do? They have had the longest opening among the major teams. I guess, Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State fired their head coaches the earliest, but both of those positions have been filled. Penn State has had that position open for well over a month now, and they've seen solid candidates go elsewhere. I wonder where they're trying to go because, again, they didn't fire James Franklin because he was going 3-9 and 4-8. They fired him because he couldn't win a national championship. And they're not going to just settle for some guy to come in because they basically have promised their fans by firing James Franklin that we can find someone better. And I just don't know where they go now. All the up-and-coming guys from the group of five are kind of off the table now. Summerall, Golesh, Silverfield, those were the big ones in the American. I know Bob Chesney has been discussed as a Penn State target, but it looks like he might be going to UCLA. Where do they go now? And there's been lots of discussion about possible mystery target for them. And Josh Heupel is the name that keeps getting brought up. I've heard Kalani Sitake out of BYU too. Both would be good hires. Do you think Josh Heupel would leave Tennessee to go to Penn State?
I personally don't see it just because of the investment that Tennessee has right now with the Adidas deal. They have one of the better NIL funds, I think, of any team. Tennessee is just such a big job, and there's a lot that comes with that, both positive and negative. And I think that after losing to Vanderbilt, Josh Heupel seeing some of the negative in that right now.
Yep.
But I have a hard time seeing him leave Tennessee, what he's built there. And remember something, too. Danny White brought Josh Heupel with him. Danny White was the athletic director at UCF and brought Josh Heupel with him to Tennessee. That relationship there, I think, means something. I think that Danny White is probably going to be a lot more patient with Josh Heupel than what some of the fan base might like him to be. Now, if Josh Heupel starts to feel like, maybe the fan base wants him out or there's more pressure from the upper management, then you can maybe argue that if Penn State tempts him with an tempting enough offer, he could leave. I don't think Lane Kiffin was just looking to leave Ole Miss, but LSU offered him a boatload of money to where he couldn't say no. Penn State could very well do that. And if you are Penn State, I think you do it because right now they dumped their date and don't have another dance partner.
Yeah, and with Heupel, I don't think he would leave. Tennessee to Penn State feels more like a lateral move to me of, okay, Penn State, yeah, maybe they'll give you a little bit more money. Maybe. I think Tennessee could match anything Penn State offers. Resources, I'm sure, about the same. And you're still in the same spot of you are the third or fourth best team in your conference, where it's like, hey, you're punching up against, in the SEC, it's Alabama and Georgia and LSU. And if you're Penn State, it's Michigan and Oregon and Ohio State. You're going to be in that same situation. I don't really see it making a whole lot of sense for Heupel. The name that I thought made the most sense was Kalen DeBoer, who could go to Penn State. And I would argue right now that if they had lost to Auburn on Saturday, Kalen DeBoer would be being introduced today as the head coach at Penn State. I think that deal was ready to go because if they lost to Auburn and missed the playoffs for the second straight year, which 20-20 or 27-20, Cam Coleman fumbles, I think Auburn would have gone for 2 if they got into the end zone there.
I think so, too.
It got much closer to happening than I think Bama fans would have liked. If Auburn wins that game and Alabama goes to 9-3, they wouldn't fire Kalen DeBoer, but I think the the conversation would be, hey, if you got an offer from Penn State, I would take it. And I think that offer was there. I think the discussions were being had. But at this point, with your team going to the playoff, unless you're Lane Kiffin, you can't leave. It's the first time we've seen a coach leave before he has the chance to play in a national championship. I'm sure it won't be the last, but I think most guys out there aren't going to ditch their current teams before they go into the playoff to go sign somewhere else.
No, and I think that right now, and I think it does kind of circle back to Tennessee and Josh Heupel being an option, because we don't know how much truth and how much basis there is behind it. Penn State might be kind of poking around. They might be interested. It might be discussion. It could just be pandering potentially from an agent or who knows who. But if I am Tennessee and I am in the crowd of, I'm sick of Josh Heupel, he needs to go, he needs to be on the hot seat, Tennessee can't lose to Vanderbilt, look at Penn State, and that is why I would not want Josh Heupel to leave right now.
Well,
because you could very well be in a worse situation than what Penn State is. Penn State has had a month and a half to find a coach, and they haven't been able to do so. Tennessee would be in a situation to where not only are they having to replace Heupel, but they are left with the bottom of the barrel and probably having to dip down somewhere in the group of 5.
Right. This is the worst possible moment to lose your coach at this point.
100%.
Where you just saw 5 jobs fill up yesterday. So all of those targets who have gone other places, Summerall and Golish and Silverfield, they're all gone. Kiffin's gone. Franklin's gone. You've basically exhausted all of the hot candidates for this cycle. And guess what? Anybody else that you think you could go poach, like if Tennessee said, you know what, we can shoot high, most of those guys have already signed extensions this year. Kurt Signetti or Mike Elko. Like, those are the names that I think Tennessee would say, we can go get these guys. And they've already signed extensions. It would be horrible for Tennessee. Like, I know there are Tennessee fans out there. I think it's a vocal minority that want Josh Heupel gone. I would be a little bit more patient, because right now, yeah, is Josh Heupel doing what Tennessee fans want him to do? No. Tennessee fans believe that they should be national championship contenders every year. Right now, Josh Heupel is on the outskirts of getting you into the playoff conversation every year, but it can be worse. I promise you. I saw a lot of Tennessee fans comparing Josh Heupel to Butch Jones this weekend, saying like year 5 going 8-4 and losing to Vanderbilt at home. Tell me where I've seen this before. And Tennessee fans, give him another year. And I know he's getting another year, as long as he doesn't bolt for somewhere else, which I don't think is going to happen. And guess what? If he goes 7-5 next year or whatever, 8-4, and they decide to let him go, you're going to have a much easier time finding a head coach next year than this year, when it feels like every job that could open up has, and every coach that you maybe thought could be good got an extension. There's really nowhere to turn at this point. And I don't think Heupel to PSU is going to be a thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's at least gotten a phone call. I think Sataki from BYU kind of makes sense.
I could see Josh Heupel and Penn State being very similar to the whole Clark Lee Florida thing. There could be the possibility there's some talking there.
Right.
I mean, it was reported after the extension that Clark Lee went to Gainesville and conducted an interview with Florida. Does that mean that he was always going to leave? No, probably not. He wanted to at least see his options, I think, and maybe do a little bit of inside scouting too, to see, okay, what are we going up against? What do I need to ask for when I go back to the table and talk to Candace Story-Lee and Chancellor Diermeyer? There could be some possible, strategic maneuvering happening there, but I don't know. It's just how quick we forget, man. I mean, to compare Josh Heupel to Butch Jones is asinine to me. I mean, he just brought you to a playoff a year ago, and you consider the circumstances. Your quarterback left in the spring. One of your most important defensive players caused an uproar in the locker room in the middle of the summer. Well, there's a lot of things that went down that were beyond Josh Heupel's control. And I'm not saying he's perfect. He's not. But it could be so much worse.
And probably your best player didn't play a snap this year. Jamal McCoy.
There were a lot of things going against him.
This is a year that it made sense for Tennessee to take a small step back. And we talked about that at the beginning of the year. If Tennessee goes 8-4 this year, are Vols fans going to give Josh Heupel grace? And I think a lot of them have, but there clearly is a vocal minority that wants him gone. I would just say, be careful what you wish for, because right now there's not a whole lot of candidates out there if you were forced to look for a new head coach. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll take your text. We'll take your calls on our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Back into the Titans after this. There are two players that, as every week goes by, I become more and more concerned by. We'll talk about them coming up next. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Couple more segments on this Monday. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby with you. Chasing Big Joe. We're coming up at the top of the hour. Lots of college football talk this morning. Vanderbilt trying to get into the college football playoff. I just saw Candace Story-Lee and Clark Lee are going to meet with the media later today. I would guess that they will make their case for the college football playoff in that media availability. Also, first, before we get back into the Titans, first college basketball net rankings came out. Vanderbilt men's basketball, number 4 in the country, best in the SEC. I mean, it makes sense. They're dropping 100 on pretty much everybody they play. They rolled through the battle for Atlantis this weekend. Really impressive, but great stuff from Mark Byington's team. Number 4 in the net rankings. Vandy women's basketball, number 12. So
Vanderbilt athletics right now, it's a golden age for them, man.
Right.
I mean, top to bottom. Elite 8 for women's soccer, men's basketball and women's basketball and football are all ranked. I mean, it is, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, embrace every single second of this, because there's been a lot of pain for a lot of years. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, baseball rankings haven't come out yet, but it would be shocking to see Vanderbilt not in the top 25. So Vanderbilt right now has a top 25 football, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball team. And then soccer, you mentioned, heartbreaking for them this weekend. Had a chance to go to the Final Four, but big shout out, friend of the show, Darren Ambrose. Great work this season. Went to their first Elite 8 and went 2 months without losing a game before that loss to TCU this weekend. Back into the Titans here. Titans are 1-11, and we talked to Cam Ward. We talked Mike McCoy in the first hour of the show. You can go back and listen to that on our podcast. But there are 2 players who concern me more and more as every week goes by. And I'll start with the one who I'm most concerned about, and that's J.C. Latham. He has been bad this season. And it's not turnstile bad, quite like Nicholas Petit-Frere. At times it's been close to it. Yesterday was one of his worst games. Josh Hines-Allen had it way too easy. And yes, he did get after Dan Moore a little bit too, but a lot of the bad plays came against Latham. There was one running play where Latham took one step outside, and before he could even get his hands on Allen, Allen was already in the backfield making a play. J.C. Latham, you cannot miss on that pick. And with every week that goes by, it looks more and more like the Titans missed on that pick. Yeah, it's tough that the Chargers took Joe Alt 2 picks earlier, who has been injured, but looks like he's going to be a franchise left tackle. It sucks that Malik Neighbors went the pick before you, who was unbelievable last season. But you took J.C. Latham. Olu Fashanu was picked a couple picks later. He looks like he could be an all-pro level tackle. Brock Bowers, that catch he made yesterday, ridiculous. Already one of the best tight ends in football. J.C. Latham, you cannot afford for him to not be, at the very least, a good right tackle for you. And right now, he is not that. And I just wonder what is going through Mike Borgonzi's mind right now, because there are so many holes on this team. And even if you trade back, let's say you do get the number 1 pick and you trade back, you're going to want to find a number 1 wide receiver, a number 1 cornerback, a number 1 edge rusher. You don't want to have to spend another top pick on a tackle. But I also wonder, does Mike Borgonzi look at this and say, we can afford to put Cam Ward back there for another year behind Dan Moore and J.C. Latham at tackle? And I just don't know if you can do it. Ward shares a lot of the blame in the amount of sacks that he's taken this year. He is not faultless in that at all. But Latham and Moore have not been good enough. And I don't know if you can get through this offseason and say, let's just give him another chance. Look at the Predators right now. They tried to do that with their veteran players of, hey, they're going to bounce back. Let's give them another chance. And it hasn't worked for them. Maybe J.C. Latham just needs an offseason here. After getting injured in game 1, he struggled to come back and find a groove. Maybe he just needs an offseason. And I'm not saying give up on J.C. Latham, but Latham hasn't been good enough that you can say we don't need to invest in tackle if you're Mike Borgonzi. And you might have to spend a top pick on a tackle this offseason, which is disappointing. You've invested so much in the offensive line, but you got to keep investing until you get it right. And it doesn't seem like they've gotten it right.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest, Jake, I think the most concerning part to me about J.C. Latham, we talked during the first hour about with Cam Ward, you want to see progression, and on Sunday you saw regression. I would argue that J.C. Latham has regressed from year 2 to year 1.
Right.
And the Josh Hines-Allen pressure. I'm sure you're going to know which one I'm talking about, where he basically had JC
Where he
Latham
dog walked him back into Cam
Yes.
Ward. Yeah.
That is the most concerning thing I think you could possibly have seen if you were Mike Borgonzi in that Titan staff, because what was the number one calling card for JC Latham
His
when the
anchor.
Titans drafted him? His anchor and his play strength. We know JC Latham is not someone that is going to be agile and is going to be able to chase these quick edge rushers around. That's never been his strength. But for him to get pushed back about 5 yards into his quarterback's face mask, that is a huge problem. And I think we're to the point where I'm not saying you give up on JC Latham as a player, but I do think that you now can have a legitimate conversation about giving up on him as a tackle. I think JC Latham could very well be lined up at guard, especially with Kevin Zeitler probably on the way out.
Yeah, spending 2 top 11 picks on guards in back-to-back years. The Rand Carthon era, everybody. Yeah, it's disappointing, especially because you move JC Latham back to his natural position, and you thought that would be a big step forward for him. You mentioned the anchor for him, and I'm starting to wonder if the body transformation that he had this offseason might have ended up being a negative for him. Because you're right, the agility and the quick feet, that was never really Latham's thing. It was that, hey, he's stronger than you. You're not going to bull rush him. And I wonder if maybe that has gone away and he's found himself in this in-between spot where he's still not fast enough to stop the speed rushers, but he's not strong enough to stop the bull rushes. It's very disappointing. And you have to find a way to figure it out, because Latham has to be a part of the solution on the offensive line, or else you're starting completely over from scratch except for Peter Skoronski. Like, Dan Moore's not going to be your left tackle in 2027. Lloyd Cushenberry's not going to be your center in 2027. Kevin Zeitler's not going to be your right guard in 2027, probably not in 2026. If JC Latham can't be your right tackle in 2 years, that means you have to replace 80% of your offensive line again, which it feels like they've done 3 times in the last 2 years. They need him to figure it out. And I don't think they're going to draft somebody to replace him at right tackle, but it's becoming more and more likely Mike Borgonzi in the 2nd or 3rd round, if the Titans are able to trade back and amass some picks, takes a guy who can be the 3rd tackle and put some pressure on Dan Moore and JC Latham and say, hey, you guys are our starting tackles this year. You got to beat this guy out, though. And he's going to come in and try and steal your job. And I would rather use that 3rd round pick or 2nd round pick on another wide receiver or another cornerback where you're so thin, or another edge rusher where you desperately need elite talent. But they can't figure out the offensive line, and you're not going to be a better football team unless that offensive line gets better.
Everything starts in the trenches, right? I mean, it's a tale as old as time, to where if you lose in the trenches, you are going to lose more football games than you win. And the Titans on both sides of the ball have consistently lost in the trenches for about 3 to 4 years straight. I mean, you even go back to some of those teams with Marcus Mariota. I know that team might not have the most top-end talent. I know that Mariota might not have been the franchise guy that the Titans had hoped that they were going to have when they picked him number 2 overall. That offensive line, it was consistent.
Yep.
It was steady, and it was able to establish the run game, and that opened everything else up. It's not even just the problem with Cam Ward. I'm not saying that Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears have been great. They haven't. But what do you expect them to do when holes close up 0.5 seconds into the play?
Yeah.
I mean, the offensive line has become such an issue, and you're going to have to hope now, not only that you hit on some of those 1st round picks, you might have to take some swings in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Like a guy like Jackson Slater, you picked 4th round, you're going to have to hope that you hit on him.
Yep.
Because you can't revamp this thing in just one season. It's likely going to take 2 or 3 if JC Latham isn't the guy that you hope that he's going to be. And like you said, you're pretty much down to just Peter Skoronski being the one piece that you have solidified in that offensive line when you have a quarterback that is trying to develop and is trying to find his way in the league and has already publicly said that this whole thing has tested his faith and his love for the game in just year 1.
It is crazy we're still having this conversation on December 1st, 2025, because in the last 5 calendar years, the Titans have taken 3 offensive linemen in the 1st round, 1 in the 2nd round, 1 in the 3rd round, and they've signed 2 free agents on the offensive line to top of the market deals. And you still are saying, hey, we might have to replace 4 or 5 guys this offseason. Crazy. Lenny on the text line makes a good point here of a lot of these players will rise when the culture changes. It's hard to play good when the culture is ass. Fair. And I think that's why you're not giving up on JC Latham. He has not played well, but I think you're hoping you bring in a coach, you try and establish a winning culture, and maybe he figures it out. TD has made the point multiple times on our show of, hey, JC Latham played at IMG Academy and Alabama in his high school and college careers. He hasn't lost very much in his life, and maybe that's taken a toll on him. We'll see. But I'm really disappointed in the way JC Latham has played. There's another player who's concerning me with his performance, Alec Imanner. And we'll talk about him. We'll wrap up the show on the other side. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Final segment on this Monday morning. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Brandon Bigsby with you. Chase and Big Joe are coming up right after us. Lots to react to today, all day long on the station. Titans fall to 1-11, losing 25-3 to the Jags yesterday. Vanderbilt blows out Tennessee. They get to 10-2, 10-win season for the first time in program history. Diego Pavia might win the Heisman. The Lane Kiffin saga. It's been a busy day, but we have had no shortage of things to talk about. Wrapping up the show, we just talked about J.C. Latham and the disappointment from him this season. The other guy that I am concerned about not waving any massive red flags is Alec Iamaner. It was a great start to the year for Alec Iamaner. He was making plays down the field. He looked like a reliable target right off the bat for Cam Ward. And I didn't expect him to be a 700-yard receiver in his rookie season. I think that was a little bit over the top, but I didn't expect him to fall off a cliff like he has over the last couple of weeks. And yesterday, it wasn't just that he didn't produce. Yesterday he had one catch for 5 yards on 5 targets. The production was bad, but it just looked bad too. Third down play, I don't know who was in the wrong spot. It looked like Iamaner was, but you get 2 routes in the exact same spot on third down at the sticks, and Cam Ward, the throw wasn't great, but it would have been better if they weren't right next to each other with 3 DBs standing right there. And then on fourth down, a little bit later in the game, Cam Ward had just missed Alec Iamaner wide open. So credit to Alec there. He was open. Cam Ward didn't hit him, but then gets hit right in the hands on a slant that would have extended a drive, and it bounces off of him incomplete. So I'm moderately concerned about Alec Iamaner. You want this receiving core to feel like there's some depth heading into next year. You don't have the top end talent, but if you can head to next year and say, all right, Alec can be your number 2, DK can be 3 or vice versa there. You got Bryce Oliver coming back. You bring in a couple of veterans maybe, and you draft that number 1 receiver. And you could turn this core around quickly, but you need Iamaner to be a starting level receiver for you to have that. And over the last month and a half, he really hasn't been. He has caught 29 of his 64 targets this year. And I'm sure some of those are on Cam. Probably, I would venture to say maybe even half of them are on Cam. But catching 29 of 64 targets is not good for a wide receiver. There's been some bad drops in there. Again, some routes that maybe haven't been as crisp. Getting a little more concerned about Alec Iamaner as we go from week to week. Now, does that mean I'm giving up on him or that I think the Titans need to replace all of these guys? No, but Alec Iamaner went from a guy who I think a lot of Titans fans were excited about and the traits that he has to a guy that is going to have to prove that he's going to be a part of this young core because it just has not looked good pretty much since the end of September.
Jake, I just looked up a stat because I was curious when you mentioned that catch to target ratio. If you had to guess where Alec Iamaner ranks in terms of I'll tell you now that he is in the bottom half of the league in catch percentage. What would you guess that percentage is?
What his percentage is?
Yeah, his catch percentage this season.
Like 40%.
He has a 45.3 catch percentage, which is second lowest in the NFL. Only Jerry Jeudy is lower.
Wow, Jerry Jeudy is lower.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy has 43.8. Alec Iamaner is 45.3.
Wow, step aside, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. We found the real matchup of the century on Sunday. Who's going to drop more passes between Jerry Jeudy and Alec Iamaner? I really like Alec. He's got legit speed. He's got legit size. He's shown that he can make plays on the football, but and maybe it's that they're not using him the way that he needs to be used. But you look back at how he played against Denver and the Rams and even Houston, he had 2 catches on 7 targets, but he had that long 30-yard play where he went up and attacked the football. It just doesn't look right from Alec Iamaner right now. And that happens with rookies. We just had the conversation about J.C. Latham of last year. He kind of fell off a cliff at the end of the season. And you said, oh, he hit the rookie wall. He'll be better next year. And it hasn't gotten better. You need Alec Iamaner for it just to be the rookie wall and for him to bounce back next year. He's a 4th-round pick. He's a late 4th-round pick. So he doesn't have to end up being Amon-Ra St. Brown. But you have missed on so many wide receivers throughout the draft and haven't invested in the wide receiver position enough that when you find a guy who does have traits, you gotta find a way to figure out that he can be a legit player in the NFL. Mike says, it's like you guys forget that the guy passing him the ball has the lowest QB rating and has taken more sacks than anyone in the NFL this year. How can you judge him if the guy who's passing him and the people who are supposed to be teaching him routes suck? I mean, Mike, it's fair. And that's what we've kind of been saying about everybody is you can't make any grand sweeping declarations about anybody on this offense because the talent overall is not good and the coaching isn't good. But I would say Ellick's problems are just as much on Ellick as they are on Cam Ward. They both have a share in him catching 45% of his passes. Let's wrap up the show by going to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Keegan, thanks for calling. What you got?
Hey, guys. So obviously Titans didn't do good. We all know that. You just did a whole show about it for the most part. And it's a bit demoralizing and all, but one thing I looked at this morning, The Athletic had the number 1 pick predictor, kind of. And have the Giants sitting there at number 4, the 4th best chance to get the number 1 pick. And I just thought, as a Titans fan, we all know this season's bad. We knew it was going to be bad going into it. We know there's not really much to look forward to in terms of hoping to get a win or maybe 2 throughout the rest of the year. But I cannot imagine how bad it must suck to really be a Giants fan, considering they got their quarterback in Jackson Dart. They got Cam Scatterbo. Last year they went and got Malik Neighbors. They got a defensive line that can run against anybody, you know what I mean? They put so much for years and years and years into having a team that was ready to where they just needed the quarterback. They got their quarterback, although he's a rookie, got to go through some growing pains. But, man, they're 2-10, and they're sitting right there in the top 5. I mean, at least the Titans going number 1 pick to number 1 pick. You know, you could tell there's not much progression in the team from year to year. But for the Giants got a lot better on paper. For them to just sit at 2-10, I mean, hey, it could be much worse. We could have expectations and then get let down every week. At least we kind of don't have expectations, you know what I mean? And that's just all I got. Something I saw this morning.
That's a good point. Thanks for the call, Keegan. Yeah, if you set a low bar, you can't be disappointed. And I don't think Titans fans expect much heading into games on Sundays. I almost went to the game yesterday, and I'm very glad I didn't. We got in late from the Virgin Islands, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to go. Very glad I did not spend money and spend my time going out there to the stadium. Titans are bad, and Keegan makes the point of, you know, at least you don't have expectations, but at least the Giants, you can see the core of what they're building around. Like, Brian Burns is top 5 in the league in sacks, and you just took Abdul Carter, and even though he struggled, that's a guy you think you can build around. You got Malik Neighbors. There's parts of that team that look like the roster can be built up quickly. I don't know a whole lot of positions for the Titans where there isn't a gaping hole. Safety maybe is one of them. But outside of that, the Titans are going to have to invest a lot of capital in free agency and in the draft to try and make this roster at least competitive next year.
Yeah, you're searching for positives, right? You're searching for little glimmers of hope. And
right.
I think with the Giants, you saw that. Jackson Dart showed a lot of flashes, put a few good games together. Cam Scatterbo looks like he could be a legit guy. You have Malik Neighbors who's there. There's things to build around. You have the young defense. With the Titans, they aren't even showing that right now. And I think that's what makes it so disheartening. And you have guys like Alagayu Manor who showed that early on, but isn't showing that now as the season progresses along. You said he doesn't have to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. He can't be Des Fitzpatrick either.
There you go.
And I don't mean to disrespect Des Fitzpatrick, but that was a bad pick for the Titans. That's what Titans fans are looking to avoid.
Exactly. Iron Manor can't be a total and complete bust. Appreciate everybody who called in, interacted today. Great stuff on Reaction Monday. We'll be back tomorrow. Nick Frazier with us for Tony Tuesday. Parker Kelly will return as well. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. You're on 102.5 The Game.